Hello, everyone, and welcome to the dojo. I have a great interview for you today with a phenomenal player who goes by the name of Efsixx. He specializes in the solo lane, and we get the ins and outs of his mindset, strategy, character choices, and item choices. There's a lot of great information here. I really hope you enjoyed the content. Thanks for dropping by, and as always, fight on, friends. Let's move on to our first part. So, Efsixx, you are specialize in the solo lane, and yeah, obviously a really difficult lane. It's difficult in the sense of just having the right mentality and performing well, because sometimes it is just one-on-one, and if you're up against like a stronger player, it's a tough time. But you know, I'm interested in your point of view, Efsixx. Can you give us some of your most important tips or strategies or anything that you want to throw out there?
I guess my overall number one thing is I don't say it enough, I think, especially like when I'm streaming. But like my first thing I really do is I respect the other person, like on the other side of me, right? No matter if it's like I think that player's better than me or if I have the better matchup, like I still have to respect that that person can kill me, and I have to just play to the point where I make them disrespect me, and then I punish them for disrespect, essentially. And that's the biggest thing I can say, because a lot of people get baited in doing stuff. I mean, I get baited sometimes as well, but I try to not to make it a habit. But just understanding that that person can definitely kill you when you think they can't, especially if they have a minion wave and you're not really focused on it. That's like my biggest one. And then second, understand your matchup. Like, if you know your matchup is not in your favor, don't try and be like, oh yeah, I'm better than this guy. Like, oh, I got 1 kill or I got 2 kills. Like, some characters just, they hit a certain point and they just become not better than you, but they become stronger than you just because of the way that character or hero is made. So, and then probably, what's up?
No, please continue.
And then probably like the last one I was really thinking about was understand that you're not going to get any help in off lane specifically. I usually play like all the lanes the same way. I just understand I won't get any help. And then if I do, then I'm more grateful for it. So that's definitely the 3 that I really think about right there.
Yeah, I think I mean, the second one is kind of like game knowledge and stuff that comes with experience. But the first and third thing that you said is something that a brand new player can bring to the table, and I agree with you completely, because your first point, it prevents you from underestimating your opponent, and that can come back and bite you in the butt.
Really good.
Yeah, and the third is just, I think it's the right mindset, because I agree, you're kind of on an island on your own in the solo lane, and there's some solo laners that don't understand that, and they think like they're struggling and they keep getting ganked, but what they don't realize is that the ganks that they're taking in their own lane help alleviate pressure across the map. And
and that's a big brain play though, understanding that.
Yeah. So I mean, even if they die, better the solo laner than the carry. Oh, you know, so
For the mid, right?
yeah, and yeah, because the mid can, if they fall behind the other mid, it could be a snowball effect. But that's definitely important, and I think you're always going to have people get upset just due to the nature of MOBAs, but having the right mindset in that, I think every time I go into a solo lane, I think I'm never going to get any help at all. I just don't count on it at all, and I play like that. And so I think that's like a healthy mindset. Not that you shouldn't receive help, but the reality is it's called the solo lane for a reason.
Right. You're by there in your own little island and you're kind of fighting for your life, pretty much.
Yeah. So Efsixx, I know you know some of like the beginner intermediate tips and whatnot, but I want to just have you explain it to the viewers. So for example, in the gameplay that's playing on the left side is the solo lane, and it's on the side of the enemy jungler's red buff. What does that implicate for our solo laner?
Okay, so for our solo lane or off lane, the reason why that's important is that's where 99% of junglers are going to start. Unless they're doing some weird like going to blue. Like I think like the only person that really goes to blue is like Countess. She's really the like one of the only junglers that really benefits the most from just starting blue. But I still think red is still a better start. But that's where the jungler is going to start. So it affects your side as well if you're starting on your red side. But essentially, you know the enemy junglers on that side of the map in the very beginning of the game, and you know. I don't know if you know, but most people don't know, but it's roughly around 3 minutes for the jungler to clear that side of the map, right? His 3 camps. So within that 3 minutes, for me as an offlaner, what I'm thinking about is there's a good chance that jungler is going to look for me to be either out of position or low health for him to get an early kill, or this offlaner to get an early kill to put them ahead. So I have to be careful on my positioning, and I have to be careful on my wave management, making sure I don't push too far into enemy territory to put myself out of position while still being able to get XP and gold in my CS.
Good point. And to just throw a bonus tidbit in there, a jungler is also going to take into account your escape potential. So if you're a Countess or a Chimera, oh yeah, he's going to want to focus your lane. And if you end up burning that blink, a good jungler is going to have a timer, 5 minutes to visit that lane again and collect. And it's pivotal. Do you think that the level 2 gank is a good timing? And do you experience that a lot in the solo lane? And for those of you who may not know, the level 2 gank is when the jungler just kills a red buff, turns level 2, and then ganks a lane. So Efsixx, do you anticipate that gank a lot? What are your thoughts on it?
Yes, because by the time the jungler clears his red buff, that's roughly around the time the first wave clear is done. So that's when either you outclear your opponent or keep it right in the middle on the neutral ground to where you guys are keeping the same clearing pace, or you let your opponent push towards you. So you have to understand, like, within that time, he's rotating to his probably the right side, or the offlane side camp, and that is really close. Like within, like I think it's like 10 seconds of being able just to not do that camp anymore and then go on to you. And you won't hit level 2 in the offlane until the second wave meets and you hit the last minion or hit one more minion, and he will have the advantage. So I see that a lot. Hey, what's up, cool? How you doing, Keem? I see that a lot with aggressive junglers. The not so aggressive junglers, you won't necessarily see it until they clear all their camps. And then they'll be like level 3, level 4. But for the most part, you only see it with like aggressive junglers like Kalari, Chimera, and Countess, because they have that dash or they have that invis that could able to close the gap for you really quick.
Yeah. And the element of surprise is a powerful one, and especially like something like a Kalari is one of the best at that.
Coming out of nowhere, man. You're like, what the? And if you don't ward it, like you really get like surprised.
Absolutely, because and some Kalaris are smart. They activate that stealth at the perfect time, so they I'm constantly looking at my wave for vision too. Say if I'm clearing green buff, and then the Kalari can just bypass that easily. Speaking of green buff, or shall I say Scion buff?
Scion buff, teal buff, health buff, whatever you want to go with.
Yeah, I think Predecessor officially calls it the Scion buff. But
okay,
yeah, how valuable of an objective do you feel that is in terms of fighting for it, its benefits, its regen, its experience? Like, do you really make it a point to box out the other solo laner for it, or is it just meh?
That's a really tough question. Because a lot of people, like, especially Keem, you'll know, when I have to take into consideration for that Scion buff, if I'm able to clear it more efficiently than the other person. What I mean by that is, do I have more mana to actually use my abilities on this? Do I have enough health? If I get ganked at this buff, am I able to take the damage from the buff and the person attacking me? And where's my wave? If my wave is pushed into them, then that gives me the advantage because now the enemy has to wrap around into my side of the jungle to come to me instead of just run straight towards me. Now, if my wave is like on my end of the side of the jungle and I'm trying to go for Cyan, that puts me out of position because I have to run back to my minions. And his minions already there. So if I attack the enemy, the minions are going to aggro to me right away if I get into a certain range. So like those are things I'm factoring. So like I can't necessarily say if it's really important because they're losing one green buff or cyan buff is not going to put you too far back if you're managing your wave properly. But at the same time, it's really important because that's a lot of XP and it's health regen, and you get some mana back from it to be able to have you to sustain a little bit longer in lane and be able to outpoke your opponent. So that way you can make them miss at least one wave. But I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm going to fight for it. And then there's that I take into consideration, like, am I able to make this an advantage? So there are times where you have to let go of the green buff, like you're low health, you don't have a lot of mana, like you just saw the enemy jungler like on a ward, or they just left your lane, probably lurking around on the side. You're like, yeah, I can't risk my life, right? So you just kind of have to let it go.
True. I personally prefer the gold buff over the cyan. It just seems like more of a, you get more bang for what you're competing for. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes, because I mean it's definitely a valuable buff that you would obviously want over your opponent. But
what a lot of people don't really think about it either. It's a good bait tactic. I do it all the time. I know people think that buff is like the end all be all, which is, it really is a good buff, like when it comes to being in the off lane, because you want the sustain, right? You want the extra experience, so you're able to be the biggest opponent like mid game, right? But at the same time, if you really want that green buff, you're not going to back for it. You're going to try and challenge for it. That also, if you play it right, you put your enemy out of position as well, right? So you're kind of just there just to make the enemy come towards you. That way you can either out pressure them and either force their blink or get a kill, and then still get the buff anyways. So that's also a good tactic to use it for, not just like, oh, I need just to get it just because it's a buff, but how can you use it to your advantage? And then like, okay, let me use this to pretty much essentially just bait, right?
yeah, well, I'll just add on just this. It's definitely an interesting battle when two solo laners are contesting the green buff and trying to score that last hit. And
It is.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between a like a really good player and like a beginner player, and with the stronger player, it is not easy at all to wrestle that last hit on it.
I'm going to tell you now, you know how much I love Steel, right? But Steel is not the best at securing that cyan buff. The reason I say that is like a lot of like the offlaners, like let's just say Fang, he's able to just dash in when it's last hit while maintaining a good range. Grux, he still has his Q where he could just pop you up and stop you from last hitting it and just using his right mouse button and just being able to clear it. I was like, Kalari has her dagger. Like all these other opponents just have that last thing there where Steel does not. So that's probably like the one I think downfall I have on him is when you're fighting for that green buff trying to get that last hit, it is rough. Unless you like really have the advantage over the other opponent.
Yeah, well, Steel can't have everything, right?
He can't have everything. He can't. I want him to, but he can't.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Steel, I know he's one of your favorite heroes to take into the solo lane. Can you go over with us first with Steel, and then maybe some of your other solo lane favorites?
Just kind of go over like why I like them, why I think they're like,
yeah,
like
you know, Can you go over why you like them? Maybe give a little bit of insight into like a matchup, maybe like an item, like highlight an item, like something that maybe if somebody interested who's new, who wants to play steel, they could absorb and then take it in with them into their next match.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Steel. I think if you're gonna go off lane, he's the number one guy. There's a reason why he has the highest win percentage in the game. He's just an absolute monster, and he allows you to make mistakes because of his passive. If you don't know what his passive is, pretty much every time you stun or use any of your CC abilities on an enemy, you pretty much get a shield, right? Obviously it levels up and it goes off certain items, so you get a really big shield. And that allows you to take certain trades that aren't in your favor and be able to come out on top. But for him, he's just an all-around team player. His dash knocks people up or knocks the or stuns the enemy, and then pushes back your enemy as well. Then you have his RMB, which is a stun. Then you have his ult, which is just this huge circle of chaos that you slam down onto the ground. And then his shield's a slow. But I think his shield's actually probably one of the strongest items in the game, or strongest abilities in the game, because it stops projectiles. And with that, if you didn't know, you could literally stop all projectiles. Rampage is rock. You can stop Howitzer's entire ult and his abilities. And I don't know if you noticed, but Howie's probably the strongest mid laner. And just being able to put up a shield more often than he's able to ult is the greatest thing ever. And with him, you're kind of just building the Fire Blossom, Flux Matrix, and those are your two core items. Dynamo is really good on him if you don't need any type of anti-heal. If I need anti-heal, I usually swap out Dynamo for that. And then you go with like either like Crystalline Curse plays well into that build, and then Stonewall as well. Warden's Faith is not as good as Stonewall, contrary to belief. That was it 15% less critical damage. I don't know if you noticed, but ADCs and late game fights, they hit way too hard for that to really even matter anyways. So Stonewall being able to, the passive on that is if you get hit, I think it's below a certain amount of health, you release a shockwave and you stun the enemies, right? If I'm able to stun you, that gives me an extra second or two to have my cooldowns come back up. I'm able to refresh my passive with my abilities. Then I'm able to keep myself in that fight a lot longer, other than receiving a little bit less damage, whilst the enemies still continue able to just peel at me, right? So that's for that. Well, that was pretty long.
No,
but I can go on all day about them.
That was great information, and I completely agree with your assessment between Stonewall and Warden's Faith. I prefer Stonewall 100% of the time. I like the other item a lot too, but I get it like in addition to Stonewall, not before.
Right. It's not something that you're going to replace Stonewall for. Stonewall is probably one of the strong, that and Citadel. Citadel is more of like you're trying to be a little bit more of a bruiser, like in their face running at them, and you're more of like the physical damage type, not the magical. But for the most part, Stonewall is going to win that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. Just it also has that, I think, a flat damage reduction to basic attacks, which is massive.
It's massive, man. Like especially when you're just going against a Grux and like maybe like 2 ADCs, and you're just like, oh, or all attack speed, freaking Kalari. You don't want that.
Oh yeah, I know. So we'll move off of Steel, but just for the Steel fans out there, right? I want to just pose you a question to you. So your ultimate, it's that shield slam. It's one of the best initiate abilities in the game. But do you always want to use it in the solo lane every time it's up? Are you conservative with it? Do you only to confirm a kill, or do you just try to whittle them down and then when they run, use it after they blink? Like how do you approach the ult?
The ult, it is one of the greatest initiators, right? But I think of that as like a team fight initiator. That meaning I'm fighting over a big objective and I need to start the fight. And I'm the tankiest person, right? So I need to start the fight. So I'm going to go in there with my ult to CC them as much as I can. But other than fighting for like a major objective or for a major team fight, I'm not using that ult unless it's to peel or to secure a kill. For instance, like for example, I'm in the middle of a fight. I still have my ult. We engage, but I turn around and see that like there's a Kai on my enemy ADC, right? I'm using that ult on the Kai. Yes, it's one person, but if that knockup is so long that it gives my ADC so much more time to just kind of back away while still putting damage on that Kai, and I'm able to save my carry that does the most damage in the game to be able to continue to be in a team fight, right? So now we turn that around, go back onto the actual team, into the team fight phase, and we're able to do more damage because we have that carry. That's just one simple example, but I find it more of as like a good team fight or objective fight initiator. But other than that, I'm using it to peel or to make sure we secure a kill, like maybe like a 20-1 Kalari, right? Like, no, we need her dead, like right now. So we're gonna need her to die. So we're gonna put everything on her, and hopefully our team could finish it off.
Oh yeah. So we'll move on to your next favorite character, but just one more tip for the new players out there. During your team contesting objectives, like or Prime or Fangtooth, throwing out that shield in like the critical moment when it's super low, you feel like a boss. You feel like a baller. You got to do it. Try it. Trust me.
Literally, as soon as you see like they're getting ready to push and like you have like that objective almost there, throw that shield down. You pretty much cover the entirety of that entrance of either of the Fangtooth or the Prime, right? And they have to actually come in at a weird angle or either go through the shield and put themselves in a bad position. And if they put themselves in a bad position, you already won, and all you did was place the shield. So big brain tip right there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It just feels really impactful too, and it's an interesting way. You're super impactful without actually damaging anybody or doing anything. You're just disrupting, which is why I like Steel. But who is your number 2 in the solo lane, Efsixx?
Number 2 is probably the most controversial thing ever. Is Countess. I think she's the second best. I think she beats the Grux if you're mechanically better. If you're just mechanically well and understand Countess, you can beat a lot of people. And I feel like Grux is one of those. Because Grux needs to get to you. And you can stay away from Grux as long as you want. You could literally toy with him and outpoke him every time. I do it all the time. It is great.
Yeah, you're gonna
and she out heals him with your right mouse button. You could pretty much heal up whatever he just hit you with. Obviously has the tick damage or the DOT damage, but because you still win trades with him if you play it correctly.
I could see that, yeah, because I haven't been able to play Countess much in lane, but she does feel really good. Really good. You're gonna have yeah.
Even after the nerfs, I was playing her today. She still feels great. I think it's actually a buff. But that's just me.
Yeah, and I like the choice because you're gonna have some Grux players see this and they're gonna think like, no, that's not true.
Right? Not my Grux. I could understand Steel, but Grux. Oh man, how's Grux not up there? Okay, calm down, guys. Calm down. Like it's a thing.
Yeah, they're gonna look to prove their might in game against you.
Oh, they're gonna lose terribly. I promise you that. She just wins, man. Like she has the ultimate poke. She gets in, you literally just poke them, back the hell out, and you're still on the fight while still clearing wave, and your enemy is trying to use all their abilities to try and catch you to slip up, but you have your timing right, you win those every time, guaranteed.
Oh yeah.
Because also in the middle of a Grux pull, you can actually still Q, and he won't be able to do his R&B on you.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shadow slip, it's done really well in Predecessor. You can actually dodge a lot of things with it. I really really like
A
it.
lot, man. Honestly, though, if the team plays it correctly, or if there's more than two or more than one person there, it's a little rough because one person just kind of waits at your shadow and then the other person just like is at you. So you kind of have to play it right, and understanding, do I teleport back and fight this other person or do I fight the person that I'm already currently fighting? So yeah.
You gotta gauge the situation and just flip a coin and just go 100% one way or the other. Because if you second guess yourself, you're cooked.
Yeah. I do not recommend playing her in offlane. Just being very new. Steel will be the best and very new in Grux. Yes, 10 out of 10 times. But once you get a little bit more comfortable with the game, maybe try out Countess in the jungle practice, maybe try out her a few games, kind of get used to her kit and understanding how to build her. I promise you, she will be in your top two just as she is in mine.
Oh yeah, she is so much fun. But when I encounter a Countess, I try to ruin her game 100%. Okay, I got that anti heal early, and uh, yeah,
I feel
just
that. I feel that.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Because that she's a snowballer. She'll just take over, you know. And just a tip, like a little tip for those of you looking to pick up Countess. Chances are you're going to have another Countess on the enemy team. No matter what, no matter how the game goes, make sure you are the bigger Countess. Make sure.
Yes. You have to make sure you're the bigger Countess, or that Countess will just absolutely destroy you. I played one game to where like she just got bigger than me. Like I mean, I wasn't playing bad. Our team wasn't playing bad, but she just got huge, and I could not 1v1 her. She was just an absolute unit. Like she was just already fed. She had 10 stacks like within like I think it was like 12 minutes, and you already know how powerful those stacks are once she gets it. She's an absolute menace.
Yeah, and that principle applies across many mirror matchups, but Countess especially. Especially, I've as a Countess player myself, but more so in mid lane. If I have the choice early game to kill the Countess or the carry, oh, I'm picking Countess because I want
Yeah,
to.
I mean,
Yeah,
because me as like an enemy Countess, I can go to the carry and blow them up without having to worry about it. Um, Fighting against literally the exact same kit and doing the exact same thing, but they're bigger than you, they win every time. It's just inevitable. Like you could go kill somebody that's bigger than you, like an ADC as Countess as a lower level, but you can't just fight another Countess at a lower level. It's 2+2 does not equal 4 there. I promise you.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've learned that the hard way myself. Now, do
That's
you,
rough, man.
yeah, just out of curiosity, right? We don't have to get into it. What would be your third? Because the second one was a controversial one. What's like a more tame pick?
The third one's not even a tame pick either.
I want to hear it. No, no, no. Tell us. Tell us.
I think it's Kalari. I think
Ooh, okay.
she's the. I'm willing to put a lot of money on this. She's the since the crunch nerf. I still think she's the number one like one-on-one fighter. Her death mark is why I say that. Her death mark does so much damage, and she's just able to triple jump away from you when she applies that, and then disengage, goes invis, and then re-engages at her convenience. I I just do not think you could 1v1 a Kalari, even with a Grex. And I think she has that potential of roaming better than a lot of people, just with her Q. She's able to steal the enemy's jungle very easily just because of her R&B. Her right mouse button is like the best clear in the jungle, stats wise, right? So That's just me. You could fight me about it, but I promise you, we all know that a good Kalari, especially when just left to farm wave after wave, not having to worry about ganks, yeah, she's a menace.
I believe you, and I just could you do the builds differ from jungle Kalari, or is it the same?
It doesn't have to differ. It has to fit your play style. That this is probably a whole entire another topic, but when I tell people like, how do I know what to build? Like, yeah, there's your generic build that like kind of works. That's kind of like a recommended build like they give you, but maybe if I give it to you, it's a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a build that fits your playing style, it doesn't work because you're trying to play around something that you don't know how, like that's like foreign to you, right? That's like going into like the shooting range, right? You're like, I don't know if you know much about guns, but like shooting a rifle is a lot different from shooting a pistol, right? If you're a lot more comfortable shooting a pistol than you are a rifle, and then I give you a rifle and be like, oh, you have to beat this person that, you know, technically has a rifle, right? But they're better with that rifle type of playstyle, you're gonna lose every time because you're still uncomfortable with it. But you'll most likely do better with like a pistol in your hand with that fight. I don't know if that makes sense. I like guns, but I think they that's the best I could come up with.
So in a way, you're saying Kalari is so strong, she just is packing heat.
She's packing heat. She's built to pack heat. Like I don't think anybody really like if you I forget what the build is. I have to it's on my PC somewhere, but I do remember it's pretty much where you're building the max mana and you're not doing the attack speed build. The attack speed build I think is a lot better with the jungle, but the attack speed build could work as well. But with the ability build, you're pretty much playing just to use your death marker as like your sole like chunk damage, right? You're kind of just going invis, hitting somebody with death marker, popping back out. The death marker goes off, they lose literally like a half of their health, and they're like, what the hell just happened, right? And then now your death marker is probably back up in like another 5 seconds. You re-engage with your Q. And then not a lot of people know this, you can put the death mark with your daggers, by the way. If you pop your E and then hit them with a dagger, the death mark applies as well. So it's just so much damage, and you don't even nobody realizes it. Like I think people realize it when they're getting crapped on by like a good Galari, but like it is ridiculous how much damage that hero can put out. It is insane.
Oh yeah, and even her escape potential is deceivingly high.
It is.
Yeah, I've watched some streams where the Kalari was dead to rights, should have never escaped, and somehow they just pop that little invisibility, just get a little bit of distance, and then they're off to the races.
Off to the races. And it's like, I noticed how freaking annoying that Q was when I was like in the first like 2 days chasing her, right? Like I didn't realize like, it's probably not that big of a deal, right? It's a brand new game. It's not Paragon, right? Usually, whatever. And she just goes and goes. She just like starts to like get like these speed boosts, and you're like, yeah, why can I not catch this Kalari? And then once you like, you cannot see her anymore. It's off to the races. You know, in those movie scenes when like they're chasing the other guy, and then they take like a left turn, and they just lost sight of them for a second.
Yeah,
you know where they went in like the show, but like. The other guy is like completely lost. That's what it feels like every time. You're like, where the hell does Kalari go? And it is ridiculous every single time, man.
Yeah, you even as a melee character, you know, if you don't have adequate movement, she can create that distance, and then that's it. And
in
then,
no time.
Oh yeah. And just it should go without saying, obviously her passive, the jumps, allows you to traverse through parts of the jungle where other characters cannot, which is
right.
Yeah, it's
you can clear a goddamn mountain with that jump, dude. That triple jump is insane.
Yeah, I think
like if you triple jump, she goes higher than Howie when he ults.
and just Imagine Galaxy Greaves in that mix. Oh gosh.
Dude, don't give people ideas, man. They're gonna be off into the space and like, yo, where's this person at? You're never gonna catch it. I'm like, oh no, dude, don't do that.
Just no, do it. Imagine walking up to mid lane for a gank through the stairs and you Galaxy Greaves into triple jump. They're never gonna see it coming. No, nobody.
Never. They're just gonna see a little circle on their mat or on their screen, like, yo, where's the caller? They're gonna look around and just no idea where she's at till she lands and just death marks you and daggers you. Oh, dude, that sounds toxic, man.
Yeah, well, it's also Galaxy Greaves an extremely expensive item. You're going to sacrifice a lot of like tempo to get that. But it's still awesome. It's still like really cool to see. But
I mean, if you're fed, you do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's true, and that's the hero that I see gets fed more than most.
More than most, man, because that death mark, it makes you think that like I'm gonna live, I might survive this death mark, but then it chunks you for so damn much, and you just like, how in the hell did she just do that much damage? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
completely ridiculous.
I think the damage procs off of missing HP, so it's kind of it's like such an interesting ability because the lower you get them, the more damage it's going to do, which is awesome.
Right? Because it like secures your kill, right? And then, I mean, it's kind of like Bellica, right? Her ult is complete crap, but like if you have no mana, oh lord.
Oh yeah.
That thing is an absolute menace.
Oh yeah. Yeah, whenever I see a Kalari do the death mark and ult, I just usually like 90% of the time I back off just because I'm like got a huge chunk of damage coming my way.
Right? I got a huge health bar that's about to just go straight down and turn to black here pretty soon. It's gonna be rough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Efsixx, now I want to but before we can wrap up and conclude, I wanted to go over a strategy that newer players I have not seen one single one do. It's more of like an intermediary to higher level move. Sentry ward versus your normal ward. Tell them a little bit about that, because not many of them know that solo lane you can kind of tip the odds in your favor if you play that well enough. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Yes. So your counter jungling as an off laner is how I like to put it. What you're doing is setting up yourself to have an easier lane for your jungler to come get a kill, which in therefore putting you ahead. Yes, it decreases your vision, but let's be honest. I mean, there's not a lot of people always completely rotating into off lane, unless like you have like a 5-man group kind of rotating in that lane. But you can simply just be aware of the map. Like once you understand the map in itself and you understand like, hey, if I don't see somebody mid, there is a 50-50 shot. They're coming right lane or left lane, right? I mean, also they could back, but most of the time they're rotating somewhere else, right? So then you just kind of adjust your positioning for that potential gank. But now if I have my sentry ward, I can also just clear wards on my side of the map to where my jungler now does not have to spend his sentry ward on my side of the map, but on the duo side, therefore creating less vision for the entire enemy team and keeping my jungler kind of in the game. And everybody knows junglers win games, and that's what you're trying to do, right? It's one of those strats that you have to be very comfortable with your map awareness and like your game knowledge and like understanding like, why the hell is this solo laner like playing up on me knowing they've lost 2 battles already. Like that's just, hey, their jungler's on the way over, just back up, go to tower. Now you wasted that jungler's time and you get right back into your lane without really missing anything. So it is definitely a mid to higher tier strategy. I wouldn't recommend it for somebody that's like brand new, but you change the game a lot in just a very small way of decreasing their vision to essentially give your team the upper hand by giving your jungler the upper hand.
Oh, absolutely. And as a jungler, if I'm running up to a lane and I see them backing automatically, I use my sentry to clear the ward. And if that happens like 4 times, 3 times, I try to focus my efforts and energies elsewhere, because basically what I learned is every time I go to gank that lane, I'm going to just be spotted and it's a waste of time. Now, imagine if like a solo laner cleared that jungle or that sentry. It would make my gank a lot more fruitful. And like Efsixx said, this is more, you're not going to really encounter it too much as a new player, but eventually you will. And I highly encourage you guys that when you do clear the wards, please communicate. Because if you tell me as a jungler, oh, hey, I cleared this ward, oh, I'm like getting excited at the prospect of ganking your lane. You're enticing me to visit your lane, and I am going to make a point of visiting it. If I see that typed, hey, I cleared, oh yeah, I'm coming. I'm absolutely.
Right. I mean, as a jungler too, I mean, if I just press my tab, right, I can see that like my solo laner has a sentry ward, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I can at least see if they're clearing it, like maybe the first 1 or 2 ganks. I could go over there and like, if I'm getting something out of it, I'm not seeing the enemy like warding there, or there's no wards there, then I'm like, okay, this is definitely a lane that where I can just kind of feed off of to get free XP. Like let's just say Fangtooth is not up, right? You're like, there's really no objectives up. I'm gonna go over to this lane to really kind of get some free XP, get some free gold, and then rotate back over to go to Fangtooth a little bit stronger, a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be honest, I mean, really the only thing on the duo side that really needs to be done is the duo needs to play smart, right? And then when we fight for Fangtooth is really when the jungler needs to be over there, or for their blue buff, right? There's really only 2 occasions that benefits the jungler there. A gank is never a guaranteed kill, so it could always be a waste of time for a jungler, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. So understand that like the real reason they're over there is for an objective or for a camp, right? And they're ganking your lane, being nice, being like, hey, I'll help you out.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't result in a gank and the enemy backs and loses a wave or 2, that's a small success.
Right. It is definitely like a decent win, right? Like you can't just like beggars can't be choosers, right? Okay, I made the enemy team miss waves. Okay, at least I got something out of it. But do understand though, like there is bigger wins and there's smaller wins, of course.
Yeah, yeah. But if you get enough of those little tiny advantages, they do add up.
They do add up. I can testify to that. They do add up.
Oh yeah. So Efsixx, why don't you tell the viewers where they can find you, your socials, a bit of your schedule, and all that good stuff.
All the good stuff. Here comes the marketing speech. So yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Efsixx. Just type that in, and then you could find me on Twitter _Efsixx, and you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Efsixx. I mostly stream. I'm trying right now. I'm actually making a whole entire like playlist of just like MOBA knowledge videos, like wave management and stuff. So that's coming out pretty soon. And then on Twitch, I just kind of stream gameplay. If anybody wants to ask any questions, they can come along or just hang out, have a good time. We kind of just chit chat over there. We rage a little bit, actually a lot, but that's just because we like to rage. It gets out the, the anger. But it's definitely a fun time. We go over new strats, new builds, who's the best. I kind of explain pretty much everything I'm doing, why I'm doing it, so you understand like what's going through my head the entire time I'm playing. So that way, if you're playing offlane, you can be like, oh, Efsixx said this, and this is why he's doing it. Let me try it. This seems like a good idea for this moment, right? So yeah, and then you can always catch me in the lobby if you're high enough elo. We'll see.
Oh, don't challenge them, Efsixx. They might just take you up on it.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I played with Efsixx over the weekend and it was a blast to play. Let me tell you, you want him on your team. You don't want to go against him.
It was fun, man. We didn't lose a game that day, by the way.
Yeah.
You noticed? Yeah, it was like 13 games, dude. I was like, oh shit.
And some of them were close. Like,
some of them were close. We had like, I remember it was just like, man, dude, because I remember like there was times where we weren't playing with like another person. It was just us, and then we just have to like hard carry, and it was just like, this is the last fight we have. Like we have to win it, and we just did it. I was like, yes, thank God.
Yeah. That dude, that was for me the best stream I've ever had in my life. It was legendary. I'm
glad you enjoyed it, man.
Yeah.
It was definitely fun, man. It was definitely fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a blast.
And it was without comms, so we weren't really like, try harding. It was just like having fun.
Oh yeah. 100% music playing, we're vibing and just having a good time. And just you wait until we get on comms. It's gonna be
man.
Oh yeah.
I think comms is kind of cheating. I'm not gonna lie to you. Comms changed the entire game so much.
It does.
Because you don't have to worry about pings, you don't have to worry about like doing the very minute stuff that keeps the rest of the team like understanding what's happening on the map, and you're just using your voice. Because pinging, VGSing, just like, oh, enemy missing right, takes that much. It takes like about a second or two out of your time. It might make you miss a CS or two, right? Like there's things that like you said before, these small things that add up that could have either have you had an advantage or a disadvantage, things like that. So definitely think that's going to be dope.
100%. Yeah. I can tell you just from memory, I could have saved you maybe 3 or 4 times, like on three or 4 different ganks to your lane. Yeah, because as a jungler, I was in the jungle and I saw the jungler, his movement just darting to your lane. I noticed the mid laner's gone, and I'm like, yep, they're collapsing on you. And yeah, if we were on comms, it would be even more one-sided. But we did play some very good competition that definitely gave us a run for our money as well. But everybody, please follow Efsixx. I linked his Twitch. Check him out. I'm going to include all his socials down below in the description section, because this is also going to be on YouTube. It is EFSIXX. Check him out. You won't regret it.
You won't regret it, thanks, man.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm telling you, I had fun watching you from like across the map. Like as a jungler, I'm like seeing you make your plays. So just seeing it live, even better. Front row seats.
Man. Honestly, man, I'm gonna bring this one fight up. I think it was the best fight ever that I had in this game in a while. Definitely top 3. You were fighting. I think it was the Grux, and then it was the other offlaner, and they rotate on you. But I was clearing wave, and I was like, oh no. So I ended up clearing wave, and then I bucked it to you, and then I totally ignored the off laner. I was like, dude, get out of my way. Then I sprinted towards you, and then I think we killed the enemy jungler, and then you were at like 1 HP, and then we turned around and just blew this Grux up, and I knew they were upset. They were so upset because they did not kill you. I think you were Richter, I believe.
Probably.
Yeah. And it was absolute. I was like, dude, that is a fight that like you see on those like, major league games. You're like, okay, that right there turned tides in the match. And you're just like, those like made people's mental just go away. They're just like, I'm done. I'm done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when that's what makes this game so good. You could kind of like turn it around, turn around fights. I think they do a good job of giving players the tools to create from the situation.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot more to this game that like honestly it will take us hours just to like even talk about, right? But there's so much that goes into this game that I don't even think people understand yet. But don't worry. I have this very intensive playlist guide that is going to have all these videos help you out soon. It's taking forever. Jeez Louise, takes forever.
It does take a while. So yeah, guys, check out Efsixx, phenomenal solo laner. chill dude, educational stream too. Check him out.
My best.
Oh yeah. And so that'll do it for the first community highlight, episode 1, where we showcased Efsixx in the solo lane. Efsixx, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no worries, man. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate you, man. I really do. Thank you.
Likewise, likewise.